everybody, welcome to this day's Daily Dose. When I was younger, my parents enrolled me in piano lessons. And every year, about November or December, I can remember our teacher pulling out Christmas songs for us to learn. And I have a vivid memory of maybe third or fourth grade of playing the simple version of the song, We Three Kings. And it was a Christmas song I really loved, and maybe it's the chorus, that big swell. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star of royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. And I liked this song also, I think, because it tells a story. And there are three kings bearing gifts. They traverse afar. I'm sure I felt really great learning what the word traverse meant. It seemed like a fancy word. They're coming from the west, right? And if you look at the other verses of this very familiar Christmas song, you'll see that it seems like each of the three kings is singing one of the verses. Born a king of Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again, sings the first verse. In another verse, we sing about frankincense, which I'm sure every kid thinks has something to do with Frankenstein when you're learning that big word. And then we have myrrh. We have the third king singing about myrrh, a perfume brought to Jesus. See, for me, this song, in addition to the Christmas pageants I was either in or my kids were in, they wound their way into my imagination and paint a picture of these three royal, regal people coming on camels to visit Jesus and Mary and Joseph in a manger. So today on the Daily Dose, I want to look with you at things that Christians should know about the Christmas story. So today we are asking, who were those wise men anyway? So let's start in our Bibles to hear that story in the book of Matthew. This story is only told in one gospel, believe it or not. So we read in Matthew chapter 2, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed a star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." So the first thing you should note is that the Bible version that I just read here never refers to these men as kings. We hear that King Herod was a part of this story. He was reigning at the time, but these men were referred to as wise men. In other translations of the Bible, we hear them called magi. That word comes from a Greek word, magos, meaning one of a learned or priestly class. Some think that these men were Persian or Arab descent, who were astrologers who actually followed star movements and charted their significance for a living. We aren't really sure where they came from in the east as they were headed west, but the Bible does tell us that King Herod was threatened by these men, and even more threatened by what they were passionate about, which was finding this new king, a child king, who had promises for the future. We don't have to look very far, even in modern history, to see that when power is threatened, the person or institution in that place of power takes drastic next steps. So Herod talks to priests and scribes who tell him that a baby king, was born in Bethlehem as was foretold in ancient scriptures by the prophets. So Herod tries to be sneaky. He finds out where and when that star appeared and supposedly sends these wise men to Bethlehem on his behalf. Then he sent them to Bethlehem saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." Now, we continue and we see that these men, when they had heard the king, set out, and they were there ahead of him, went to the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. And they enter the house and see that the child with Mary and his mother, they kneel down and pay him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offer him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now think with me for a minute back to that song that I mentioned at the beginning. That song called We Three Kings. And note that never in those verses that I mentioned were three kings talked about. The word three is never even used. We only hear that there are three gifts, which it's believed over time the Christian imagination has led us to think that there were three kings who came. In nativity scenes and Christmas pageants, we've imagined three kings actually riding on camels, coming to the stable on the very night Jesus was born. But again, there's no mention of timing within this great story. It very well could have been when Jesus was a toddler and they came to his house, because we learn later on in scripture that Herod orders all children under the age of 2 to be killed, hoping that he can take out this new king. So what are we to do, Christians, when we hear this favorite Christmas song, when we pull our manger scenes out of the box and we set the shepherds, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus next to three kings, maybe a camel? I'd say we keep setting them up. We keep singing that song. I believe our Christian imagination and the retelling of these stories, which do evolve over time, that's a part of what keeps this incredible story alive for us today. And even though the details about those wise men is a little unclear, the timing may not be as we imagined it on Christmas Eve, even so, Jesus did come to challenge the powers. He was born in an unlikely place, around unlikely people. And to know that these wise men sought to know more about him, to honor him, these wise men who had nothing to do with Jesus, whether there were 3 or 300 of them, it helps us to remember that Jesus does transform lives for all people, for shepherds and wise men, for you and for me. Thanks so much for watching The Daily Dose. We'd love for you to hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and go ahead and share this with a friend. See what other Christmas stories we'll be telling on The Daily Dose this week. Thanks so much. Have a good day.